Welcome, everyone. We're just going to let attendees continue to come into the room, and we'll get started here in just a moment. Okay, well, welcome everyone. This is the USDA NIFA Nutrition Security webinar series, and our focus today is an overview of NIFA's food loss and waste relevant funding opportunities. So we're so glad that you could join us here today. Before we do get started, here you can see is our non-discrimination statement. And we will also be providing a link in the chat if you want to read that more thoroughly. Okay, so before we begin, let me go over a few housekeeping items. We do ask that you please use the question and answer function and not the chat box to submit any questions, just so that we don't miss anything that you might have. Please include your name and email, so if we don't answer the question live, we can contact you this week with the response. Towards the end of the presentations today, we do and will welcome questions, so please stay on for those. Also, as a registered attendee, you will be alerted when the webinar materials are posted on our NIFA Nutrition Security Webinar Series webpage. And we're actively updating our past and future webinar materials, and we're bolstering our new Food and Nutrition Security NIFA topic page with additional subtopic pages. So stay tuned, and future webinars will be posted to that website as well. Now, I just want to share a little bit about our NIFA Nutrition Security team. So we assembled this in the early stages of the Biden-Harris administration in January 2021. And this team, as you can see, has grown to more than 80 members and is made up of talented staff from across our institutes and offices. So in just less than 2 years, this team has really been at the forefront of responding to the Secretary's priority to tackle food and nutrition insecurity. And last year, this team won the NIFA Team Award and the USDA Research, Education, and Economics Mission Area Team Award as well. Next slide, please. As outlined on the Department Nutrition Security website listed here, and our Food and Nutrition Security topic page that we'll be placing in the chat box, the NIFA Nutrition Security team aims to coordinate and promote NIFA's more than $200 million investments in research, education, extension, and innovation through 5 key nutrition programs, advancing USDA's goals to tackle food and nutrition insecurity. In addition, the team helps to leverage more than 20 NIFA programs overall with the ability to help prioritize nutrition security. Several of our efforts are also highlighted in the Biden-Harris National Strategy on Hunger, Nutrition, and Health, including our efforts under pillar number 5 to advance research at the intersections of climate change, food systems, and nutrition security. Next slide. Indeed, a lot of the NIFA Nutrition Security team's success has been building intersections with our other 4 priority teams, which align with the department priorities listed here on this slide, which are to address climate change through climate smart ag, forestry, and clean energy, to create more and better market opportunities, to tackle food and nutrition insecurity, and advance racial justice, equity, opportunity, and rural prosperity. And NIFA has a 5th priority team also focused on workforce development. Today, you're going to see how our food loss and waste work is really a great example of our efforts to build bridges across these priorities and the tremendous value NIFA brings to advancing these priorities through our integrated approach of research, education, and extension. And I'm thrilled to share with you our process on stimulating research, education, and extension aimed at mitigating food loss and waste. Lastly, I'm excited to announce that one of NIFA's key programs, the Gus Schumacher Nutrition Incentive Program, or GusNIP for short, just announced their Year 3 Impacts Report as well. We will provide a link in the chat for you to also see these new published impacts and a result of the hard work of this USDA priority. Next slide. So a key part of this work has been our strong partnership with Dr. Jean Buzby. And as you will learn, NIFA has had a strong relationship with our department-wide efforts to mitigate food loss and waste. And personally, I just want to say I've had the opportunity to work closely with Dr. Buzby the last year and a half as we've been building out our new and enhanced food loss and waste efforts at NIFA. And Dr. Buzby is a departmental treasure. She has been at USDA for more than 25 years and is currently the USDA Food Loss and Waste Liaison in the Office of the Chief Economist. So now we're so thrilled that you have the opportunity to hear from Dr. Buzby about her work and how NIFA's efforts fit into the larger departmental-wide approach to mitigate food loss and waste. So thank you again, Jean, for your leadership and collaborative spirit in this area. It's my pleasure to work with you and to be able to introduce you today.
Thank you so much for the very kind introduction. It's been my pleasure to work with you as well and with other folks from NIFA. Really appreciate it. I'm here today to share about the USDA Food Loss and Waste Programs policy and the guidance. Next slide, please. So first of all, I wanted to set the stage, though. Food loss and waste is a really big deal, both domestically and globally. Roughly 1/3 of all food produced goes uneaten. And that's about $936 billion each year, and globally, and at least $161 billion by one count in the US. And also, this food loss and waste is associated with 8 to 10% of all greenhouse gas emissions from human activity, as well as about 1/4 of fresh water used by agriculture for crop production each year. I want to also mention that the term food loss really is food that goes uneaten for any reason or is lost from the food supply chain, starting from on the farm up until the retail loading dock. And then food waste is what happens at retail stores, food service outlets like fast food and other kinds of restaurants, and also in people's homes. Next slide, please. There are many implications of reducing food loss and waste. It can generate many benefits to society. First of all, if the food is still wholesome, that can currently help feed those in need. And then reducing food waste can save or make money. By one count, there's a 14-fold return on investment for businesses implementing waste reducing strategies. And an average household family of 4 can spend $1,500 a year on food that goes uneaten. And probably that's valued even more with today's inflation. And also the resources to make that uneaten food, such as the fresh water, the arable land, and energy, all could have been conserved and used for more productive uses. And again, there's that greenhouse gas connection, both when food scraps rot in landfills, but also all the transportation gases and so forth that are produced for food that doesn't ultimately meet the intended need of feeding people. Next slide, please. So the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, created this food recovery hierarchy to show the most effective ways to address food waste. Don't want to spend a whole lot of time, but the general principle is that if you can prevent food loss and waste at the start, that's really the best way to go. But if you do have excess wholesome food, the next best opportunity is to get it to feed those in need, and then feed it to animals. And then there's industrial uses like making soaps out of excess rendering oils and so forth, and rendering products. And then there's composting. And then the worst solution would be to either landfill it or burn it without energy generation. Next slide. I do want to mention that we have a formal interagency collaboration between the U.S. Department of Agriculture, the Environmental Protection Agency, and the Food and Drug Administration. And we each do our own food waste reducing activities, as well as we have collective activities. We work very closely together. Next slide. So many USDA efforts touch on food loss and waste. In at least a dozen USDA food loss or agencies touch on it and work to reduce it through different ways, and we'll get to that soon. I like to think that there are four main buckets that USDA, or how USDA addresses food loss and waste across the entire food supply chain, and we'll get to them one by one now. Next slide. In terms of program funding, there are USDA, sorry, I am, hold on one second. I was trying to move something. All right, my apologies. So as far as program funding, there are several USDA agencies that manage competitive funding programs or administer credit and loan programs and so forth. One important one is that the USDA plussed up an existing composting and food waste reduction program by $30 million. And there's still 2 more days for the open call for applications for this year's funding. But there are other programs that support infrastructure building, such as anaerobic digestion or digesters, cold storage, and so forth. And there's also programs that we'll hear later on today coming out of NIFA. Next slide, please. We also have scientific, core research and research funding. USDA's Agricultural Research Service is USDA's chief scientific in-house research agency with their own bench scientists and labs across the country. And ARS has produced neat innovations like the cultivars. Strawberry, there's a keepsake strawberry cultivar, for example, that is flavorful and has a longer shelf life. And they've also created new packaging and other food loss and waste reducing technologies. And then there's NIFA, which you're going to hear more about in a bit, but NIFA's had some really great innovations as well. And then USDA has an economic research service, which conducts high quality research to inform and enhance public and private decision making. Next slide, please. And we do a wide array of stakeholder engagement and outreach. I had mentioned earlier that we work closely with EPA and FDA, and one example is the USDA Food Loss and Waste 2030 Champions Program, and that's where businesses can voluntarily and publicly commit to reducing food loss and waste in their own U.S. operations in half by 2030. And we've got some really big businesses that you would recognize that are champions, such as Starbucks, Kroger's, and Hilton Hotels. And we also have had the past 2 years USDA Food Loss and Waste Innovation Fairs. And you can still register for free with just your email and watch it on demand. And there you can go into these virtual exhibit halls and see virtual booths of some of NIFA funded interventions in particular. We've also hosted a wide range of roundtables, and then each USDA agency that touches on food loss and waste can do their own outreach that's relevant to their mission. You're going to probably, or you will hear later about NIFA extension. But we also have the Food Safety Inspection Service, which has a Food Keeper app, which provides guidance on safe handling, preparation, and storage, for example. Next slide, please. And then the fourth bucket is that USDA does regulatory guidance as well, such as FSIS provides guidance on food product date labeling, because when there's consumer confusion about the many kinds of date labeling, the use by, sell by, best by, sometimes food is discarded prematurely. And then FSIS also provides guidance on the donations of eligible meat and poultry products to nonprofit organizations. Next slide. So some of the key takeaways is that in the US and globally, we have a long way to go to reduce food waste by half by 2030, which, by the way, is a national goal set by USDA and EPA in 2015. And it's also United Nations Sustainable Development Goal, Target 12.3, has a similar goal to reduce food waste in half by then. But the reality is food loss and waste is really complex, and it's going to take many different solutions from farm to table. When you think of all the different ways and places that food is produced and how it's processed and transported and all the different places where you buy and consume food, it's very complex to really make meaningful inroads to this very significant problem. But everyone has a role to play in reducing food loss and waste. And one thing, if you're thinking about starting a new project, is that there's really a need for more data and research to measure progress. How are we going to measure reaching that national goal? So it's really helpful to consider that when you're developing programs and projects. And so, in short, USDA is helping prevent, reduce, and repurpose food loss and waste programs, policy, and guidance. Next slide. I do want to mention, and we'll share these slides to those who register, but at the very end of this final slide for me, I have the 3 websites for the 3 agencies that I mentioned, USDA, EPA, and FDA. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much, Jean, for being with us today. And we're glad that you're going to stay on for questions that attendees might have. Okay, I'm going to transition us over now. You're going to hear about NIFA's food loss and waste programs. So if you're looking for funding opportunities and other opportunities to intersect, these are the slides focused on that. So I'm going to start us out here with our next slide here. Our newest opportunity is our Center for Research, Behavioral Economics, and Extension on Food Loss and Waste. And you can find the invite for this proposal through our AFRI program and the information here and deadlines that you see on the slide. But what I want to expand on that's not on the slide is that this center must examine or support research and extension efforts that address 2 or more of the following non-exhaustive food loss and waste issues. So examining the costs and benefits of policy, technology, practice, and behavioral interventions designed to reduce food loss and waste from farm to consumer and throughout the supply chain, to develop economic and empirical models of food loss and waste, to advance the science needed to make our food system less wasteful, more sustainable, equitable, and resilient, to leverage public and private partnerships and resources, to assess interrelationships between food loss, food and nutrition security, healthy food programs and practices, and environmental impacts. Things like assessing adoption and management of resource conserving and risk mitigation for post-production practices, to support strategies for planning and implementing food loss and waste efforts. Again, targeting food loss and waste anywhere from farm to table. And so as you can see, and as you dig more into reading about this proposal, like I said, you'll just need to, if you're interested, address 2 or more of those issues. So not all of those topic areas, but we have left it to encompass a wide range. Also, the center really must focus on addressing a national extension food loss and waste strategy, and that needs to be coordinated. You heard from Dr. Buzby about other priorities, other national strategies, and so again, we do not want to do this independently. Also, we want the center to engage with minority serving institutions and underserved communities to develop management and outreach plans, and to look at culturally and contextually appropriate approaches throughout research programs and activities. And finally, we want the voice to be present. So working with private sector or other key stakeholders, including youth voice, to be lifted up. So if you're interested, we really encourage you to please go and to check that out. And you have until September 14th to apply. Okay, next slide. Unfortunately, there was a family emergency that Dr. Finkenstadt had to deal with, and so she's not able to be on with us today. But so I'm going to show her next slide. She is with the Institute of Bioenergy, Climate, and Environment, and so the program that she was going to introduce you all to, as you can see on the slide, is another AFRI program as well, A1531. And this requests research-only grants. So again, that's key. The previous that I talked about requested research and extension. So again, make sure and take a look at what those specifics are when you're applying. And those research-only grants can fall into the standard, seed, conference, and strengthening grants categories, as well as we welcome new investigators as well. So, so excuse me. So sorry, apologies. So next slide, please. I am going to turn it over now to Dr. Charlotte Tuttle, another national program leader here at NIFA.
Hi, everyone. My name is Charlotte Tuttle, and I'm a national program leader in the Ag Systems Division, and I manage the agricultural economics programs. So I'm going to discuss two programs from within AERC that apply to food loss and waste. Next slide. So the primary program that I think applies best is my general ag econ program, economics, markets, and trade, A1641. So the purpose of this program is to support research on the development of theories, methods, and applications of ag economics. So within this program, we often have proposals that talk about agricultural market structure, international trade, farm labor, agricultural production, consumer behavior, and ag policy. What I've noticed in my time with NIFA is that this program really does receive a number of proposals related to food loss and waste, and a number of these proposals have been successful. Next slide. So if you're interested in applying for this program, I've listed the due dates here in October, and the total funding we allocate is $12 million, but maximum funding is $650,000 per project for a period of 3 to 5 years. Now, under this program, if you partner with a minority serving institution, small to mid-sized institution, EPSCoR state institution, or an international institution, you can qualify for an extra $150,000 that goes to that partnering institution. Next slide. The other program that applies to food loss and waste is social implications of emerging technologies. Now, the previous program is a foundational economics program. There needs to be economic theory. It needs to be driven by economists. With 1642, this is a multidisciplinary program. So what we are looking for is a number of different expertise, because it's asking a question that goes beyond an economic question, and it's looking at the social implications of new technologies related to agriculture. So this includes application of gene editing, nanotechnology, analysis of big data. But all of these kind of ask, what are the social, ethical, cultural impacts of new technologies on communities? Next slide. So the due date for this is early November, late October. And similar to 1641, we have a maximum award of $650,000 unless you partner with an MSI or small to mid-sized institution. And then you can get an extra $150,000 for that institution. Now, what I failed to mention is 1641 is a research-only program. However, 1642 is integrated, which means it can be research and extension. And I think that's all I have for my programs. Thanks.
Thanks, Dr. Tuttle. Now we are going to switch over to Dr. Lydia Kaume and Dr. Helen Chipman, who are going to introduce you to a couple more programs.
Thank you, Suzanne. So my name is Lydia Kaume, and I'm going to talk about the Community Foods Project, which is best aligned with where the food loss and waste efforts that we are talking about today. I'm a national program leader for this program. The Community Food Projects Competitive Grant Program has 3 grant programs. That is a technical assistance and training grant, a community food planning projects, which has a maximum amount of $35,000 with for 1 to 3 years, and the Community Foods Project, which is best known as just CFP, and the maximum award amount for that grant is $400,000. These grants provide investments in new and startup projects or to invest in completing project plans towards the improvement of community food security in keeping with the primary goals of the Community Foods Projects Competitive Grant Program as a whole. I will put in the chat what for you all to have a link to all the information for all the programs right there. Next slide, please. I just wanted to introduce the rest of the team. Donna Fairhurst is a primary program specialist for Community Foods Projects. We have Brianna Burke, who is also a program specialist that supports this program, as well as Shakiva Shepherd, who is a program assistant that supports this program. They are wonderful. Please reach out to any one of us. Our email is on the slide, and that email is a shared email so that we can be as responsive as possible to all of you, and we can share more information with you related to your questions, as well as my phone number that is available for you to contact me. Next slide. Let me now tell you a little bit about the purpose and priorities of Community Foods Projects Competitive Grant Program and why it really aligns with the efforts of food loss and waste. The primary goal is to meet food needs of low-income individuals through food distribution, community outreach, and to assist in participation in federally assisted nutrition programs or improve access to food as part of a comprehensive service. This program also has the goal of increasing the reliance of communities in providing for their own food needs and promote a comprehensive response to local food access, farm and nutrition issues, or to meet specific state, local, neighborhood food and agriculture needs. And this program also supports equipment purchase as far as they're necessary for an efficient operation of a project. And they also support planning for long-term solutions to food. As you can imagine, when you have to deal with food production and distribution, food loss and food waste is part of that. And so I'll share with you in the next slide examples of community foods projects that have come that have been successful. Next slide, please. In really showing that the aligned effort of food loss and waste. So we have examples such as projects that create community gardens with market stands to support food security goals, as well as attached to that efforts with kitchens and community gardens and community distribution centers for food. So this helps really reduce food loss as well as food waste in the community, while also ensuring that there is food security within the community that these projects work in. There's the food recovery projects that direct wholesome surplus food towards individuals in need through either food delivery projects or work with food banks and other facilities like that that provide a place for people who are hungry then to get that food that has been surplus from farmers. So such projects are supported by this program. We also have examples of cleaning projects that harvest food and distribute it to not just hungry folks, but cook it up and provide it as a complete meal to people in need. We also have several projects that organize and operate self-sustaining food co-ops. That way they are reducing food loss that is from the local farms and then reducing and also providing the producer a level of a link to the consumer and therefore increasing the economic value in their community and economic opportunities for farmers and local producers. So these projects are all required to involve in the design of and in the delivery of these programs, people with low income, and these projects really do a really good job with that. And so I'd encourage you, if you're looking at applying to these projects, please go to that website, learn more about it, and you can reach out to me. Next, I'm going to hand over to my colleague, Dr. Chipman.
Thank you. Thank you. So my name is Helen Chipman, and just making sure I'm going to be speaking about the food loss and waste within the Food and Ag Service Learning Program, Food and Agriculture Service Learning Program, which is also known as FASLA. We could go to the next slide, please. So our team includes myself and a national program leader in the Institute of Food Safety and Nutrition, Division of Nutrition, Dr. Ashley Mueller, who is a national program leader in the Institute of Youth, Family, and Community, and she'll be speaking later on some other programs as well. And then Mr. Ryan Cornegay, who is just central to this work. He's been working at this longer than both of us. He is a program specialist in the Institute of Food Safety and Nutrition. Next slide, please. Now, the purpose of the Food and Ag Service Learning Program is to increase the knowledge of agriculture and to improve the nutritional health of children. And I love this particular program area because it really brings together sectors of society, sectors of the population, working together and working across generations and thinking of the upcoming generation into setting us up for the future in terms of food and ag service learning. So can we go to the next slide, please? The purpose and priorities as outlined in the legislation is to bring together these stakeholders, such as I mentioned, from distinct parts of the food system, with the purpose to increase capacity for food, garden, and nutrition education within the host organizations and other entities, such as school cafeterias and classrooms. It's intended to foster higher level of communication between the farms, the elementary schools, the secondary school systems, and the communities, as well as in terms of nutrition security to improve food access and quality of children from kindergarten through 12th grade. On top of that, we are in the intent is to develop leadership skills, knowledge, qualities, preparing students for careers in food and agriculture. Next slide, please. Now, some things that are important about if you're interested in this work is it must involve underserved rural and urban communities. And again, facilitating that connection between the school systems and the agriculture producers locally or regionally, really right where these, at the heart of where these decisions are so important and where you can see those changes firsthand. Also to encourage and seek, create and partnerships with public and private or nonprofit or for-profit entities, including academic institutions, other appropriate professionals, community-based organizations, school districts, local, state, and government entities. If you look at the RFA, it has a rather broad eligibility. And I might mention as well, these awards as in 2023 were a maximum of $225,000 for a 24-month period. We could go to the next slide. I have some examples of activities that have been funded, expanding the farm to school programs, establishing new, strengthening existing community partnerships, encouraging and increasing the consumption of fruit and vegetables through promotion, taste test, and other activities, developing and evaluating the curricula to reinforce food nutrition-based learning across the school environment, expanding experiential or agriculture-based learning opportunities. School gardens are especially big, ag and food clubs, exposure to on the farm. And then I'm highlighting this last bullet because although food and ag service learning does and has included food loss and waste, we really started lifting it up in fiscal year 2023. It was showing up in some of our projects, but we really were not giving it the attention that we felt and that it deserves. And so an example that now we're looking at as well is increasing student learning about preventing food loss and waste, and influencing school environments to support healthier food choices and reduce food waste. As Jean mentioned early on, we're talking at this point at the food waste level. The food loss is more on the agricultural side of it, although the students can be a part of that as well. So those are some of the activities that we're thinking about, that we're trying to be more holistic in terms of our food and ag service learning program, and make sure we're not missing this prime opportunity of really capturing what's happening with respect to food loss and waste. Next slide, please. And so we're early. This was our first year of really giving attention to food loss and waste within food and ag service learning. And so I would just encourage you to stay tuned as to what the future will be. And with that, I will pass back the mic, if you will, for our next speaker.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Chipman and Dr. Kaume, for updating us on those efforts in the Institute of Food Safety and Nutrition. So now rounding out our array of NIFA programs, we have Dr. Ashley Mueller with the Institute of Youth, Family, and Community.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Suzanne, and thanks to everyone who's joined today. It's great to see so many of you online and are interested in food loss and waste programs here at NIFA. I am Ashley Mueller. I am a National Program Leader in the Institute of Youth, Family, and Community in the Division of Family and Consumer Sciences. It's been such an honor to get to work with Dr. Chipman and Mr. Hornegay on the FASTLIP program, and I'm equally excited to share with you about 5 programs that are led by my colleagues in IYFC. So next slide. So I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about each of these programs because we will be providing direct links for more information, but just wanted to really share that the Institute of Youth, Family, and Community has a diverse portfolio of programs focused on capacity building to really reaching key stakeholders and audiences through a variety of different programs and efforts. And so I'm going to run through each of these here and provide some important program contact information for you should you want to learn more about each of these. Next slide, please. So the first program is the 1890 Institution Teaching, Research, and Extension Capacity Building Grants Program, also referred to as the CBG program. And the purpose of this program is to really strengthen teaching, research, and extension through in the food and agricultural sciences by building that institutional capacity at 1890's institutions. So really want to focus here on the emphasis areas because I think this really lifts up this connection to food loss and waste. So in this particular program, the focus here is sustainable bioenergy, food security, childhood obesity prevention, or food safety. And just wanted to make it clear that in the context of this program, food safety is broadly defined and includes contamination of perishable and durable commodities with pathogens, insects, and physical contamination that ultimately lead to food loss and wastes. Dr. Razana Maroof is the National Program Leader for the CBG program. And so if you would like more information or need some clarification, she is your contact, and her email address is on the screen. And I believe we put the link to the program in the chat. Next slide, please. So the next program I want to focus on is the Alaska Native Serving and Native Hawaiian Serving Institutions, or the ANNH Competitive Education Grants. So the purpose of this particular program is to promote and strengthen the ability of Alaska Native serving institutions and Native Hawaiian serving institutions to really implement education, applied research activities, and related community development programs. Interested applicants will want to note the eligibility because there are some restrictions, and it is restricted to the ANNH institutions that are established by the legislation. Projects that can be submitted to this particular funding opportunity can be education, applied research, or community development. So there's a lot of opportunity here for freedom and exploration. Dr. Kellyanne Jones-Jamgard is the National Program Leader who can provide more information about this program if you are interested in this one. Next slide. Relatedly, and also under Dr. Kellyanne Jones-Jamgard's program portfolio, is the Resident Instruction Grants for Institution of Higher Education in Insular Areas, or the RIIA programs. The purpose of the RIIA programs is to promote and strengthen the ability of the insular area institutions to implement teaching and education programs within this broadly defined arena of food and agricultural related sciences disciplines. There is an eligibility requirement for this particular program as well, so applicants will want to note that it is restricted to institutions of higher education in the insular areas. Projects for this particular program and funding opportunity can be both education or teaching. And as I mentioned, Dr. Kellyanne Jones-Jamgard is the contact for this particular program. So do reach out to Dr. Jones-Jamgard if you have specific questions related to this funding opportunity. Next slide. So shifting gears here, but also wanted to highlight as well some particular programs regarding tribal colleges and tribal extension. So the purpose of the Tribal Colleges Extension Program is to support community-based education, so that outreach and engagement at the federally recognized tribal colleges. There are two types of grants associated with this particular program. The first is the Capacity Grants Program. And this program makes awards every 4 years. So you'll want to keep in mind the next opportunity for this one is in 2026. But there also is a special emphasis grants program as well as a part of this program. And more information is available soon. The eligibility for the Tribal Colleges Extension Program is colleges and universities that are designated as 1994 land grants by legislation. And the program RFA is really what applicants need to refer to regarding the specific project types and key strategic actions that applications must address. Janice Woodard is the program contact and national program leader for the Tribal Colleges Extension Program, and her contact information is on this slide. Next slide, please. And finally, last but not least, is the Federally Recognized Tribes Extension Program. The purpose of this program is to establish an extension presence and support extension outreach on federally recognized Indian reservations and tribal jurisdictions of federally recognized tribes. The eligibility includes 1862 land-grant institutions, 1890 land-grant institutions, and 1994 land-grant institutions. Potential applicants will want to note that the program RFA, again, is really the go-to for all the information on priority areas. But we wanted to highlight that food systems, farm and community markets, and food sovereignty are included in this RFA in this particular program. Again, this program is under the leadership of Janice Woodard, and you can reach out to Janice at any time for more information on the Federally Recognized Tribes Extension Program. And that rounds out the Institute of Youth, Family, and Communities Food Loss and Waste Focus Programs. Back to you, Suzanne.
Thank you so much, Ashley. And just again, thank you to all the presenters. We are now, we've now reached the question and answer session. And so I see that there is at least 5 questions so far coming in. Keep those coming in. We definitely have time to answer each of those individual questions. So I'm going to ask, to stop sharing slides and bring us all back to the gallery view and ask my fellow presenters to come back on camera. Thank you all. As we set this up, this Q&A session. So the first question, it looks like, comes from Brenda. So thanks, Brenda, for introducing yourself. And she is a member of the ARS Grand Challenges, where they're looking at developing insects for supplemental feed for ag livestock. And she's wondering how any of us on this panel, or NIFA in particular, interface with the USAID Food Loss and Waste Group. And so, Brenda, I'll kick off and say I'm just most familiar with the listserv, and Dr. Sheila Fleischacker shares those happenings and reports with us. So I see that through the listserv, but I'm not always in the loop with what others on this call may be participating with you. So I'm going to open that up to see if they have other thoughts.
I want to just mention that I do participate in the monthly USAID calls on the insect protein. So when I can, I do, and try and follow what's going on.
Well, Brenda, again, if there are opportunities that we should be intersecting and working with you, you now have the names and the faces from this panel. And so we will certainly, want to connect more on that. And there's a few members of our team that were not on today, maybe in the audience, but like Dr. Vijay Nandawa, he is a very strong member of this team as well. And so he, again, may be participating in your efforts. So, okay. Sarah has posted, can the A1741 focus on one or two parts of the food system sectors versus trying to cover the whole food system? And I'm going to I'll start out, but I'll let my other national program leaders who are really helping to lead this effort, if I say something that they would like to clarify, I'm going to invite them in. But I know I was reading a lot of those two areas that the proposal would need to address. And so one piece, when I went back and I looked at the bullet point, is that the wording that we say is targeting food loss and waste anywhere. So that's the key word, anywhere from farm to table. So I hope that helps to answer your question. I mean, obviously, you're going to need to convince the reviewers why you should focus on that one sector when you're applying, but don't be intimidated by the language. It's very broad, I believe, to allow that, but I'm going to pause and let my other national program leaders jump in.
The only thing I would like to add is that in the RFA, it does actually say that you can address, the center must examine or support research and extension efforts that address two or more of that non-exhaustive list that you read, Suzanne. So it shouldn't be intimidating. But read the entire RFA and the notes that are additional to that, so that you can understand the spirit of the program. Thank you.
If I could speak a little more broadly, just about our RFAs in general, our requests for applications. I think they are intended to be broad. They are intended to invite that creativity and the thinking that comes from those who are in this audience today and others as well. We don't want to be too prescriptive. And so what's important is to take these ideas that you have and then make sure that they fit and fit well, speaking specifically to that RFA. But we are very intentional about being broad and trying to allow for as many ideas as possible. But then again, as Suzanne said, you have to convince the reviewers.
Okay, great advice. And I'll just put in a plug too. If we just recently held grant writing workshops. And so I can have one of my staff put that in the chat as well, if any of you need assistance and want to watch those videos. They were recorded, so we should lift that up too. Okay, an anonymous attendee has asked, and I think they might be talking about the FASTLIT program. I don't want to assume, but they're asking, is student learning about food waste K through 12 at the K through 12 level, or can it include college age students as well? So Dr. Chipman, do you want to start in answering that?
So and let's see, Ashley's on, so she can correct me if I misspeak. But I think the emphasis is on K through 12, but that does not mean that you cannot involve people from other ages and like college students. They might perhaps be more in a leadership role, or you know, it's again intended to be creative, but what we're trying to do, you think about giving people the opportunity to start thinking about their careers, or really in those early years of life, learning about food loss and waste, or other things about food and agriculture, that they really get that foundation early in life. And then if you want to involve those who are in secondary education or others, definitely make those intersects as well.
I see Ashley nodding. Okay, great. Thank you for that question. Very important. Okay, Ashley, I'm not sure if you're going to be able to answer this. So again, Helen, if you can give us your contact information too, we can follow up. But I think you're posing it to the IYFC program, and are 1862 institutions excluded, and if so, why?
Sure. So in the last program that I shared, 1862 institutions was eligible. That was the federally recognized tribes extension program. But related to the other, simply wanted to share eligibility because that is I think a key aspect of any RFA that potential applicants should be honing in on. Oftentimes that's associated with the legislation tied to the funding. So that may be why you see specific restrictions there. Suzanne, you may want to chime in as well with additional information, but wanted to provide that clarity.
Maybe I could add as well, on some of these grants, there are opportunities, although a person or an entity may not be the person receiving the grant, they can work with the grantee. And those sometimes are some of our strongest proposals. So again, in the spirit of community, in the spirit of cooperation, collaboration, in the spirit of what we're trying to do with food loss and waste, a person, and I see this with the Food and Ag Service Learning Program, that sometimes someone might not be eligible, but they may fit very nicely with someone who is, and it makes for a better proposal.
Yeah, those partnerships are key, and that, thank you all for lifting that up. And I think you've heard that throughout today's presentation. If we have not fully answered your question, again, please even type that in the chat if you'd like, to one of us, Helen, so we can certainly circle back with you. We want to make sure your question got answered today. Okay, I did see, I just want to make sure some more questions here are open. Sorry. Elena, hopefully I'm saying your name right, Ms. Goldstein, has a question in the space of composting. So we do get that question a lot. I might actually, Jean, I know you know the broader swath of programs. I don't want to put you on the spot, but NRCS has a specific grant on composting as well. So that could be one opportunity. And then I am going to have to ask our other NPLs who are on, if they by chance know, how the other AFRI programs that you talk about. I'm not as well versed, but first, if I don't put you on the spot, Jean, if you mind just talking about composting, if the programs that you kind of see applicable.
Sure, and I know it's Alana, so I know she's from EPA, so hello, Alana. But the main one, as far as food loss and waste, is the composting and food waste reduction grants, and that is one I pointed to on my slide. So when you all get my slides, feel free to check that out. But those can be for localities, municipalities, and even school districts to apply, and up to 400,000 each. So, and that's the main one. Those grants don't have to include composting, but they can. And I think I'll stop there. Thank you.
So much. Other NIFA staff, again, so here's, I'm going to go back to I think Brenda posed this question. So here's what we have at NIFA is we have also national science liaisons. And so for the Institute of Food Safety and Nutrition, for example, we have Dr. Sheila Fleischacker, and what she does an excellent job of, and we can put her information in the chat box, is if you just email Sheila and you say, hey, this is the topic I want to cover, she convenes us and brings the people to the table. So we can further answer your questions. And so again, if we have your contact information, we can do that, and we're happy to have a conversation with you. And so we would bring those individuals to the table that we think could talk to you about compost, for example, or insect protein. I think that was, or insects earlier that was mentioned. So I guess I'm just lifting that up as a way to also connect with us.
The program that Elena mentions is by Matt Granger, so maybe connecting her with Matt might be helpful. I'm not very familiar with all the priorities of the program.
Thanks, Lydia. And we can do a search here. And yes, I think Matt would be that contact. He's also a national science liaison here at NIFA, so a great intersection. Okay, I think we've addressed all of the open questions. I'm not gonna close us out yet. Oh, because I was gonna say sometimes they come in here slowly. So it looks like Aaron or Ariane, again, I'm sorry with names. I should just Mr. or Mrs. Turner here on the screen. For the Youth Family Community Institute, are there local offices in which they can be accessed by a stakeholder, public, or by appointment? Okay, so I think, I don't want to assume your question, but one of the local offices that NIFA supports would be, we support cooperative extension offices across the nation. And so that might be one avenue that perhaps you're looking to. And so I can hand it over to Ashley. She actually, has experience with extension if she wants to allude to and expand more on that.
Sure. Thanks, Suzanne. So yeah, at the local level, cooperative extension is really focused on community engagement and outreach in a variety, of areas of focus, of course, nutrition, health and wellness, but agricultural education. And so they may be potential natural partners to explore or at least build some connections and community coalitions. But specifically for the Institute of Youth, Family and Community here at NIFA, I provided the contact information for the national program leaders who oversee each of those funding opportunities. And they really are that best initial point of contact if you would like more information about a particular funding opportunity or are reading an RFA and just need a little bit of clarity. They're kind of your go-to resource there that can answer those questions. So I really do encourage you to reach out to those folks. Also, too, just wanted to add in terms of IYFC programs, there likely are many others that potentially could include food loss and waste projects. And so if you happen to come across an RFA that may seem like it could fit or work, just encourage you to reach out again to that national program leader because they'll be able to have that conversation with you.
Okay. We keep getting a question about would the slides be shared, and absolutely, we will get those up on our website along with a viewing of this recording if anybody wants to go back and watch that. It just takes us a moment to do closed captioning and a few updates, but we'll be following up with that. Okay, I think, again, the key here that I'm seeing and you're hearing inconsistent messages from our staff is that we're available to you. This is the reason for doing these webinars. We want you to see our faces, our names, and know that we're accessible. So please do not hesitate to reach out. We have a great directory on our website as well. If you leave and you forget perhaps whose name was mentioned, you can definitely find us through our directory too. Okay. team, I don't think I'm missing anything in the chat so far, but again, I'm still going to wait and do a pause to see if more questions are coming in. Just some comments. So glad you're finding this useful. We appreciate them. Okay, I'm going to give it again one more minute. Just so again, if there's a question percolating out there, I want to make sure we get it answered for you. Okay, well, I cannot thank you enough as an attendee for taking time out of your schedule today to join us. But I also want to thank all of our panelists again today for making this such an informative and fun webinar. It sounds like many of you walked away with a little new tidbit of information. And so we're happy to do that and to share that with all of you. So just a reminder, if you're new to joining us for the first time, we try to have these sessions monthly. And so stay tuned for future opportunities. We are looking at covering sessions on tribal food sovereignty, looking at having another session on youth, particularly 4-H youth and their perspective on food and nutrition security, and also local and regional food systems. So those are just a preview of some of the topics that we'll be exploring for these future sessions. So again, thank you all so much, and a big hearty thank you once again to all of my panelists. So have a great day, everyone, and take care. Bye for now.